So Arcgis Pro is the mapping tool that Auburn uses now. I believe we phased out ArcGIS, ArcMap, also known as ArcGIS Desktop. So hopefully, if not today, later in the next couple of days, you will begin to be able to activate ArcGIS Pro. So I'm going to click on it, I'm going to open it. We use what's known as named user licenses for ArcGIS Pro. So basically all that means is, right now it opened immediately for me, but for some of you, you might need to sign in to an ArcGIS account. So hopefully you guys have done that. You have an ArcGIS account? No? Yes? Some of you? Okay. We'll work with you to make sure that you have it. But basically, the reason why we do this is so that the licenses for ArcGIS Pro are all based on an online server. So you don't need to be connected, say, for instance, to the VPN of the university to access software. You can access this anywhere using this. So this is the splash screen for ArcGIS Pro. The important thing that I hope most of you, anyone who's following along, I hope you would check this and confirm this, is that basically, if I click on the little, down the bottom left corner, there's a thing called Settings. There's a tab on the side called Licensing right there. This is the key thing that I hope works for anyone who's successfully entered it, is that you have licenses for all the extensions enabled and say yes. So who here sees yes on it? Okay, some of them?
The same ones that say no.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, the ones that say no are not important because Asia, Europe, Japan, we're not working in those cities and it's not that big deal.
Do you need street map premium for North America?
No. That's all I wanted to know, is make sure that those who were able to get this far have yes. This was the thing that I wanted to double check with Stephen Wall about, was that to make sure we have access to the extensions. The extensions are, 3D analyst, spatial analyst, network analyst. These are tools that actually give you functionality. So if all this says yes, you are all systems go. You're pro, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new project. So what we do is you click on Map on the side here. It gives you an ability to create a new project. It will save the project in a default location in your Documents folder. You can do that. You can also save it somewhere else. For this example here, I'm just going to do this and I'll call this test project. You can call it whatever you want. So I'll click OK. And then it's going to open the tool, like so. So likely you'll see something like this when you open it up. You'll see like a base map. You see all these tabs on the top there. So ArcGIS Pro now uses the ribbon interface that things like Autodesk and AutoCAD and Revit and all those tools they use now. So that's how they basically modernized the interface for ArcGIS Pro now. So a few things just as I walk through this interface. We'll go through the tabs on the top, and then we'll go through the table of contents, then we'll go through some of the other toolbars that you can use to look at. Basically, if you click on this project button on the side, it takes you back to the splash screen, which allows you to, say, for instance, go to the licensing portal and check your things. Map tab right here, this allows you to work with your navigation tools. So the first one is this navigation button. Typically, like I have this Explore option here selected most of the time, because this basically allows you to move around the map, zoom in with your scroll wheel, zoom in with your right click as well, like so. It's just the most basic way to use your tools. Everything else here is pretty self-explanatory. You can go through this and you pretty much understand what it is. Bookmarks, if you used ArcMap past, this is the same principle of bookmarks, where basically you can set a view. Let's say we zoom to area, click bookmark, new bookmark, call it whatever you want, test. And then basically if you move and lose the area, you can go back to that area that you set. So bookmarks are really handy. Base maps, again, this is another carryover from the previous version. where basically you set a new base map to any look that you want. Imagery is a good one. Imagery with labels is good as well. I like using one of these whenever I can. Let's try imagery with labels. And then you can see basically it pulls in a base map aerial photo with labels on top of that. This is the primary way that, in my opinion, ArcGIS Pro exceeds and is better than the previous version. Is if you remember in ArcMap, anytime you have a base map, like it takes like a year to like move around the map and for it to reload, and for another year for the remote load. Here, it's more optimized, so you can zoom in and move around, and it's a little bit faster. So this is where ArcGIS Pro definitely is superior to the previous tool. A few other things as well. There's the selection tool. So again, this is another carryover from the previous version. So you can use it to basically select features. You can select features using a rectangle, polygon, lasso, circle, etc., etc. When we start to add data, we can show you how that works, and some other options as well here. So these other things here are pretty self-explanatory, like measure, locate, all these other things here. Insert, let me move to the next tab here. Insert here, this is where you can do things like create a new map. So you can actually create another map inside this overall project folder. This is where you add your layouts. So that's basically your paper space. I'm gonna skip over to this one here, connections right here. This is where we begin to add data from, say, an ArcGIS server. So this is where that whole REST services URL that I showed you comes into play. I'll show you that in a second. Add folder. So this is where you basically find the location of your data and then connect to that folder. So if you want to follow along today, this is clicking on add folder connection. This is where you could, say for instance, copy and paste the link. If you're using a shared folder, you can just basically copy and paste that link, there into that location there, hit enter, and then you should be able to see the data in your Arc catalog. Arc catalog is, if you right click on the side here, there should be a thing called catalog. You click on that, that's where you basically have your whole folder structure. And this is where, you see, we added that folder, and now you're able to see the data from our shared folder server. I'm going to do something different just for my own purposes. I'm going to add folder from my own local drive right here, because I have all the same data that we're working with, but I have it saved locally. So I'm just going to do that. My personal recommendation is to work locally, as in, like, if we're working with data, have it saved on your actual laptop itself rather than sharing the data on the server, because the risk you run with working with data on the server is that other students are sharing the same data, and if you say, for instance, edit that data or delete the data, you impact everyone else's projects. So I highly recommend that you copy and paste the data in the shared folder to your local, so you can work with it separately from everybody else. And also, it's nice because if it's on your local machine, you take it with you everywhere you go.
How did you get to the catalog again on the side?
So that's adding the folder connection. A few other things. I'll just quickly flip through the rest of these tabs. Analysis, the analysis tab. This is where you have your primary geoprocessing tools. So if you've done geoprocessing and other ArcMap tools in the past, this is where you go back to find that. So that toolbox right there, red toolbox tools, that brings you to the familiar red toolbox menu there where you can find all your tools. And then there's some very commonly used tools here as well, like clip, buffer, et cetera, in the, analysis menu on the side, like here. So these are some tools that you can use real quickly. View, I don't use this tab that much, so I'll skip over it. Edit, edit, this is a tool tab I use a lot. This is when you begin to actually modify your file shapes and geometry. This basically takes the place of the editing toolbar in the previous version of ArcMap, but now it's basically, you're always in edit mode as opposed to having to enter edit mode in the previous version. So that's a little bit convenient that way. And some of the editing tools here are actually much nicer in this tool here. Imagery, this is where you can begin to do some imagery analysis tools. Share, this is where you begin to do things like upload your layers to ArcGIS Online, or simply export the map out to, say, like a JPEG or an Illustrator file that you can use. So we'll go through this in the latter half of the tutorial, is how you actually take the data and push it out. So with all that said, let's go back to make sure you have Explore set as your default thing. The first thing I always do, and usually when you bring your first layer of data into your map here, it automatically adjusts the coordinate system to inherit the coordinate system of your first piece of data. As you may know already, like basically you always want to work within the correct coordinate system for our locality. And so what I saved in the shared folder right here is this State Plains NAD 83 KML file. If you double click on that, it opens Google Earth Pro, and it basically gives you this little map here that shows all the coordinate system zones for the entire United States that we use. And so we just find the location that we're working with, in this case, Montgomery, Alabama. And you see it's in this red area here. I click on that, and it tells me that this is Alabama East, right there, Alabama East. So I know that when I set my coordinate system, I want to make sure that I'm working within Alabama East, right? And obviously, if you work anywhere else in the country, you can find out what coordinate system you use there. So this is a handy map that I give you guys as a way to do that. So what we're going to do now, we're just going to go back to ArcGIS Pro. We're going to double click on the map on the table of contents there, and then this is where you can basically set your coordinate system. So we'll basically go to a coordinate system right there. And you can search for Alabama, projected coordinate system, state plane, NAD 1983 feet, because we're working feet in the United States, Alabama East. And then you set that to OK. Want me to show you one more time? Okay, let me show you one more time. So basically, double click on the table of contents right there. So it brings up the map properties. And then on the menu on the side, you just go to coordinate systems. Let me expand this so you can see it a bit more. And basically, you can either find it manually or just search for it. So I just click on the search, and I type in Alabama, enter. And then it filters the results to be only for Alabama coordinate system. So right now, the only option is projected coordinate system, state plane, gives you all these options here for NAD 1983. We are wanting NAD 1983 US feet. Everything else is in meters. You can use meters if you want, but in America, we use feet because we're weird, because Americans are weird. We don't use meters. And then you expand that, then you have east. So then you just click OK. And then your coordinate system is now set. You can see it basically centralizes it so that if you work within this general area, everything is nice and basically scaled correctly for the area they're working with. So then let's start adding some data. So let's go to catalog. So if you have catalog on the side, basically if you don't have it on the side, just right click and make sure you have catalog. Click there. So yeah, it might be these things might be like hard to find. If you can't find it, just go to the View tab on the top, and you see there's like this catalog pane. So you can click on that, and it should bring it up as well. So the catalog, this is basically your method of bringing data in. You can pin the catalog or auto hide it, like so. So different ways that you can basically link, keep it on the side. I like to keep it on the side because it makes it easy to see. Then just find the folder that you have data saved in, and let's add some data. So let's go into the SHP folder here, and let's add in the city limits, which you should have access to. So just drag it in, and that brings in the city limits to Montgomery, Alabama. And you see it populates that into the table of contents on the side, just like you would see in good old ArcMap. And just like good old ArcMap, you can adjust the symbology of it. So if you click on the little icon below city limits, you can change the color, outline, everything about it. So you can choose from one of these presets here, or you can go to properties and you can change, say for instance, the color of the outline. In this case, I don't want this to cover the aerial, so I'll make the color no color. And I'll make the outline a nice, thick red border, so it's very clear to see the border of Montgomery. And there's a bunch of other options you can play with as well. One useful thing to find is the attribute table. So again, very similar to ArcMap. That's something I'm repeating over and over. It's very similar to ArcMap. That's because it is the same as ArcMap. You know, right click on that, you can click on attribute table, and this brings up the tabular information of the shapefile data. So it gives you the data itself and all the metadata associated with that shapefile. It's very useful. If you have the Explorer button clicked, you can click on the shapefile and it basically brings up a pop-up pane that also has the metadata as well. So very easy ways that you can click on data and find out what it is.